Over the years, all too many livelihood laureates have been imprisoned for their human rights work. Among them are three brave human rights defenders from Saudi Arabia, awarded in 2018, while all of them imprisoned for democratic reform, promotion of that in their home country. Walid Abu al-Khair, internationally praised human rights lawyer, sentenced to 15 years in prison, and who still has 5 years of detention remaining. Abdullah al-Hamid, poet and professor, died while serving an 11-year sentence as a result of medical neglect by Saudi authorities. The third Saudi laureate is Mohammad Fahad al-Qahtani. He co-founded an organization together with Abdullah al-Hamid to advance democratic reforms and monitor human rights violations. Al-Qahtani was sentenced on trumped-up charges. After serving 10 years in prison, he was supposed to be released in November of last year, but he was forcibly disappeared shortly before his release date. Since then, his family has been prevented from being in contact with him or knowing his exact whereabouts. More than a year has passed and they still don't know where he is. Al-Qahtani once said, "You cannot stop rights activists. They are like weeds. When you pull out a few, more grow back stronger and thicker." Alongside 10 human rights organizations, Right Livelihood is calling on Saudi Arabia to immediately disclose where he is and to release him. And we hope that all of you are willing to be a part of the efforts to free Al-Qahtani. There will be more on that later on. But now we are honored to have Mohammad's son with us here in Stockholm, Sweden. He has traveled here to enlighten us about his father's work and their situation. The warmest welcome to Abdullah al-Qahtani.
Good evening, everybody. Hello? Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's doing okay. Back in 2009, I remember I was 13 years old and I lived with my family in Saudi Arabia. Every Monday evening, my father, he went to see his friends and they talked politics. Because I was the oldest, my dad would always take me with him to listen, serve coffee. They always left their cell phones in the car. They never told me why, but as I grew up, I understood that it was to avoid surveillance. About 30 men would gather, and the conversations went on for hours on hours. Sometimes they brought a camera to record their discussions. Like most kids my age, I was totally bored. So when I could, I would just try to sneak out and play video games as much as I can. When they were busy with their conversations. My dad was never happy about this. He always got upset because he wanted me to sit there and listen to him. But now, sometimes I actually go on YouTube and I would listen to his videos and his friends that they published back then. Now I realize I was serving coffee to some of the most progressive champions of democracy and human rights activists in Saudi Arabia that has ever seen. And one of them is my father. Dear Father, earlier this week I visited London and I met with activists and government officials. Everywhere I went, people talked so highly of you. They always asked me, "Are you the son of Mohammed al-Qahtani?" And they would smile and ask, and I felt so proud. We're all proud of you and what you have accomplished. My father is one of the founders of a human rights organization called ACBRA. They wanted to give more power to the people and to end male guardianship. My dad and many others were thrown in jail for their peaceful efforts to reform Saudi Arabia. My father was sentenced to 10 years in prison on charges like disobeying the ruler. My dad laughed at the judge who handed down the sentences, actually. Shortly before the ruling, we were exiled to the US. My father knew that it was coming and made sure we left the country safely. My sister Layla, actually, at the time, she was only a few months old at the time. Despite being in prison, my dad actually called twice a day, and he was very engaged in our daily lives. However, in October last year, he stopped calling. That was only 1 month before his release date. We have not been in touch with him ever since. In the beginning, my sister Layla asked, "Why does Baba not call anymore?" I didn't know what to say. I was just stunned. The silence caused by my father's forced disappearance, has deeply wounded us as a family. Every day, my mother would call the prison and pretty much anyone to ask about my father. She was told by a Saudi official to forget that man and move on, which we will never do. Abdullah al-Hamid, who received the Right Livelihood Award with my dad, passed away in prison due to medical neglect by authorities. I don't want my father to face the same fate. He should have never been jailed for promoting democracy. No one should. He must be released now. I hope you will join our calls to free my father and all other political prisoners in Saudi. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for that deeply touching testimony from Abdullah al-Qahtani about his father. And dear audience, to make sure that we are doing all we can to support the efforts, Right Livelihood now asks you to join in on calling on Saudi authorities to immediately disclose Mohammed's location, to release him unconditionally, and to let him contact his family. Now on the screen or in your program, you should see a QR code, and if you scan that code with your phone, everyone in the audience also has it, you are able to sign the petition to free al-Qahtani. So please also, to really light up the venue in support of al-Qahtani, switch on your flashlight. When you've signed the petitions, we can really show that we are many in this fight to free him. Thank you.